Anyway, we can read for inspiration. This is from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is from the 4th chapter, text 41. Yoga samyakta karmanam jnanam samchna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadhananti dhananjaya. Translation. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reaction of work or conqueror of riches. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who follows the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita as it is imparted by the Lord, the personality of Godhead himself, becomes free from all doubts by the grace of transcendental knowledge. He, as a part and parcel of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, is already established in self-knowledge. As such, he is undoubtedly above bondage to action. Namaste Saraswati Devam Guravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shrimari Pashkar. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his action, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus he is not bound by the reaction of work or conqueror of riches. This is one of many shlokas which Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight with no consideration to the result of his actions, simply out of duty. This Prabhupada defines as an action out of goodness, to say at least. Here, in connection to Krishna, it is actually transcendental. So, in this way, the result is already here defined. One is not bound by the reaction of work. That means neither by the good ones, neither by the bad ones. One is simply acting for Krishna, herewith gaining spiritual benefit, not material benefits, neither good or bad ones. So ultimately, going out, let's say, and distributing Kulegov, distributing prasadam on the street, it's just a detail. It's not really, like for materialists, it would be very important. We are selling food here, yeah? And then they will make all strategies how the food should look like and how the food should, be acceptable for commercial purposes to public. You know, when you look like cooks in the material world, famous cooks, they have broadcastings on TVs. Be a famous cook means to have a famous restaurant. When you look what they are cooking, first of all, Prabhupada called it heaps of sin. But second of all, it's not really much to eat. And any cook will tell you, oh, it's not important actually really ultimately how it tastes, it's important how it looks like. So it's a whole decoration. Sometimes I saw portraits of the most fancy restaurants in the whole world where people go to eat for insane amount of money. One evening meal is $5,000 or something like this. And what they get is big white empty plate with little things in the middle. You know, that's of course called cheating. So, but for karmis it's very important. For devotee, it's not ultimately so important. Important is, did Krishna accept that? That's really important. Like Srila Prabhupada, just recorded, tested his disciples before he departed from this planet by leaving behind his maha, means prasadam, which was tasted by him, which was, actually he was fasting most of the time. So, but still, Prabhupada, it's known that Prabhupada liked the tasty prasadam, but Bengali tasted. It is known that the Western disciples sometimes had really tough time to fully appreciate Prabhupada's maha because it was so spicy. Not only that, but before he departed, he mixed up the whole sink just to test his disciples. He took whatever was on a plate and with a hand he mushed it all up. Sweet rice, chili, everything one pile. And then he was thinking, this is just for you to test if you are attached to your eating or appreciate Maha. So that's what you see, like Indians often, they just ask for it Maha. And they should be given always something. Because they take it in the right way. For them it's not a question of being hungry or how it tastes like we eat so much. Of course, we have an incredible description in Chaitanya Charitamrita of amazing feasts being cooked up, which sounds like reports from really hedonistic orgies. Like unbelievable, preparations. One may wonder why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami spent time describing it, sometimes like a whole cookbook. It's so fancy and so detailed described. Because this is what Krishna tasted. That's important. So for devotee, it's more important, is my activity desired and accepted by Krishna, not really the external outlook so much. So in case of Arjuna, it was important to get him fighting, because that's what Krishna wanted him to do. And that was his way of preaching and his way of contributing to Krishna's mission. Prabhupada said, he may come to it too, yes. When Vedic society is established, we will have our army, we will have our Kshatriyas, we will kill everybody who is not Krishna conscious. Great. And he said it with such an ease, he said it in the same way, and then we will also cook tons of prasadam and distribute it to people. In the same way he said that. Why? Because it's a part of Krishna's plan. That's all. It's not about enjoying or hating the killing, enjoying or hating the cooking. It's the same. Krishna wants it to be done, let's have it done. So Prabhupada didn't hesitate to mention a relatively early stage of his preaching to this, peace-seeking Vietnam War opposing hippies. That was really a risky thing to do, So Prabhupada, but he immediately explained that it's not about killing, it's not about being peaceful even. It's about, doing what Krishna wants us to do. That's important. That's definition of peace and non-violence. So, this is, of course we don't diplomatically not put it in the front lines of our preaching, but why should we? It's not needed. But the real thing which is described here, and Krishna is described as Madhusudana, he's a killer of the demon Madhu. He's a killer of the doubt, which is compared to a demon. So doubt, this is what is actually making us trouble. Doubt means that we think there is something beyond Krishna, something stronger as Krishna, or something different from Krishna. Therefore, Kanishta Adhikari is somebody who can perceive Krishna only under very limited circumstances. He cannot see Krishna in his daily activities even. He can see him only like on the altar or in the temple, in the church, while he is praying. But then he goes out and then he thinks, yeah, okay. And then I will go back to my normal life or something like that. And then I am just, Krishna is not on the street. He's just in the church. So this is Kanishta Adhikari thinking. Whereby a real devotee, he sees Krishna in all what he's doing. He sees the connection. And once one is trained to see more the connection, then it's not difficult to do for Krishna whatever is needed, because a real definition of a servant is that he's serving. He's not putting any condition for that. No, I'm only that kind of servant. And this is the service I like to do. This is the service I don't like to do. That's also a servant, but a very difficult one. Just imagine to have a servant like this. You have to always choose carefully the words, how you will engage him, in which service, otherwise he will reject the service, and he will reject you even maybe too. So Prabhupada did that in the beginning. He basically engaged specially devotees in any kind of favorable activity they could produce. But as soon the level of doubt was diminished and the readiness to surrender was increased, then Prabhupada immediately entrusted them with tasks which were far beyond their expectations. It's not what they expected to do in Krishna consciousness. They couldn't even imagine, like we always have our thinking, okay, today we did 70 bags of Kulagov, that's big. Well, let's see how big it's for Krishna. Prabhupada said that you always limit yourself by the way what you think was big. Big. But I remember when the first book was distributed in ISKCON, devotees asked the devotee, how did you do that? You sold a book. How do you do that? I was the first one in ISKCON along with Rohini Sutta Prabhu distributing 500 books a week. That was unheard before. Somebody can do such a thing. 500 books a week. How do you do that? And we didn't do anything special. We did just what we always did. We went out every day. And of course, he had some idea, that we should do more. Because whatever we did, there is something we don't tell people when they start to serve Krishna. When Krishna starts to pay attention to you, then a process is started where there will be always a little transcendental dissatisfaction on your part. It's never, because Krishna is so big and he wants so many things to be done. The more you know about it, well, the less satisfied you will be in what you are doing. Sometimes, it's very difficult, like for devotees to grow old, because definitely there's a physical limitation there. And sometimes even devotees develop some kind of, you could say, unhealthy disgust with their bodies, because the bodies are really limiting you. So in one sense, unhealthy means that it's just negative. We have to accept a certain type of, defeat on that level. But Prabhupada went beyond that, obviously. And he didn't pay that much attention to that bodily situation he found himself in. Because he was constantly driven by the desire to satisfy his spiritual master. It's even a material platform visible when people get fascinated by some idea. Like example, to love a girl, how much austerity you tolerate? When you are attached, or want to achieve, you are lusty, you want to achieve the object of your enjoyment, people can tolerate so much. They are so austere, it's incredible sometimes. When you look at the karmis, what activities they can do, coal miners and working on oil rigs and being in circumstances which are so inhuman. Just for what? Just to get that money and get that idea what to do with that money. They will tolerate so much. So, sometimes devotees, if they would just imitate karmis and project it into Krishna consciousness, well, they will be really a pure devotees. Because actually we don't do very much. The activities, when you look what we are doing, what we are doing are actually not extremely sophisticated. It doesn't require much brain to roll Kulagov. It doesn't require even being genius to produce one. It doesn't require a genius person to wash a pot. It doesn't require, what are we doing? What are we doing? What's so special? What are we producing? You can say, any activity you look around. Well, any kami, if you would tell him, I will pay you 5,000 krona an hour, he will learn and do it really fast. But one thing he cannot do. He cannot get together the motivation to serve Krishna. He will not see any reason for that. So this is what makes devotees' activity special, and this is actually what keeps us going. And this is what makes devotees glorious. Because they actually are ready to put their idea aside and replace it with Krishna's idea. Gradual. The more we do that, the more we find ourselves ecstatic. And it's not the easiest thing to do, because for millions of lifetimes we were flying, swimming, crawling around, running around just trying to achieve what we want to achieve. Even animals do that. They are constantly out there achieving something which they consider very important to them. Like cows, they eat all the time. Are very important to them. You know, yeah? So they're achieving the objective all the time. They chew and chew and chew. And people run around, always, everybody with the idea, this is what I want. And this is what we should do. You know, especially the combination of male and female is extremely aggravating the whole process. Females are like the inspirational thing. You know, like that. I had just some test of it by decorating some Kami's home with some paintings. You know, who is deciding what kind of painting is going to hang on a wall? Guess. At best, within the presence of the husband, is always the wife. And sometimes the wife doesn't even care if the husband comes home or not. You know? Yeah. It's her choice, and that's how it's going to be. He has only one option left. He will work for it. And for that idea, Prabhupada gives a really summary study of this whole rasa. He goes, man works hard the whole day. He comes home, Prabhupada said, little piece of bread to eat. And little cup of tea. But then, being still dissatisfied, he hopes, the food was not really so good, but then I can have some sex life. And then Prabhupada produced this sound, pap, 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 pap. That's the sound of a female donkey kicking on the face of the male donkey while they have sex life. And then, but what is this? You know, it's not as great as we think. For sure not. For sure not. It's never enough, it's never good enough, we don't want to go in detail, but it doesn't satisfy. Then exhausted, he falls over and sleeps. Then he wakes up, always too early, would like to sleep more, cannot. Why? Because next day he has to go to work again. One cigarette, one cup of tea, bang, jammed in a subway. Here we go again. For what? For again in the evening. Pep, pep, pep. Just kicks in the face. It's amazing. What motivates people to move. And you see it every day. So, to do something for Krishna is something completely different quality. Otherwise, what are we doing? Why we are so eager to hear? This is what I got to know now in Mukunda Maharaj books. How these hippies were the first Sunday feast in ISKCON being organized by Prabhupada. Nobody had the idea. Prabhupada said, we are going to call it our love feast. He adopted this hippie, expression. And we will have a Sunday love feast. And I don't know, why is he talking? Why is he doing that? So Prabhupada himself, with the help of few confused hippies, he cooked up quite a feast. They even borrowed the pots, they brought all kinds of pots. And Prabhupada cooked, and then he himself served the hippies. He lined them up, and he served them very enthusiastically the prasada. And was going, you want more? You want? And they were going, there was one gentleman who in front of him consumed like 26 chapatis. And he thought this was just the beginning. And Prabhupada said, you want more? Yeah. And even I remember later on Prabhupada describing like his different devotees from the early days. He remembered them along the amounts of prasadam they could eat. He said, Ketananda, he could always eat so many, Brahmananda, he ate so many chapatis. He always remembered them, how they were eating in the beginning. So people will say, what kind of strange way? Even the hippies, why is this old man jumping around, this old Indian, and so enthusiastic with this old pots, this was an old pots he borrowed somewhere. And then he just served, them like, and he said, why is he doing that? Because they couldn't see the principle behind that. They couldn't see actually that Prabhupada is just trapping them in Krishna consciousness like prasada. They couldn't, so they just, it was all emotional. They felt like, why is he doing that? But actually after taking such a prasadam, especially cooked by Prabhupada, they thought, no, I have to go back and eat more. And that's exactly what Prabhupada tried to achieve. And somehow intuitively they were drawn back to Krishna consciousness and immediately compelled to produce some service. Prabhupada said the service is a completely natural attitude. So Kulakov here, or book distribution there, or whatever service we do, but the motivation, that's the real thing. The desire. Motivation means everybody is powered by some sort of desire. If you have the desire, do that. Then strong desire very often produce a strong result. Even on a material platform. Krishna is not a sadist. You try to be, you are Mr. Hitler with a strong desire. Well, you can be empowered. You can destroy, practically the whole Europe. If that's what you really want, this idea of my Europe, but what are you doing actually? You are destroying everything. He could see it. He just organized destruction, right? So, what an idiotic idea to start with. First, you think, this is going to be all my after I destroyed it. What an idea. But that's a demon, no brain, He goes, we destroy it, and in this way it's going to be ours, What do you mean ours? It's destroyed, So, this is no brain. But you can see, blessed, yes, be blessed. An unrecognized, mediocre, frustrated artist with one testicle, Such a person gets empowered to create such a devastation, kill so many people. So how is that possible? A desire. And of course it's not just his desire, it's a congregational desire. After all, he was democratically elected by the German people. They all shared the desire. So desire, that's the root of this of any activity. Even a person who is totally frustrated and ultimately commits suicide, well, what a strong desire, it must be that. To kill his body, which is like instinctively maintained somehow always, but we always try to protect the body. But if somebody kills his own body, what a strong desire is that? So the whole Krishna consciousness is turning around this one point, how to cultivate stronger desire. Once the desire there, the technicalities, what you do and how you distribute Kulegov, how you distribute books and all this. Yes, this is also good to discuss, but it's just a detail. The real thing is to have a strong desire. There's something that I say because there were some practical points you want to mention.
Excuse me?
There were some practical points Madhava Shraya Prabhu brought up.
Yeah.
For example, regarding that, what we are saying on the street. It was. I would agree on that at least. I was not raised like this, and also we got lots of trouble out of it, because there was no unified policy what to say when you distribute. Well, we end up distributing Bhagavatam like a cookbook and things like this, and this is pure cheating. Okay. So just someone to give it to them because they are anyway animals and so this Krishna doesn't sometimes tolerate. There has to be an image, and especially by the level of preaching, like example in the city of Copenhagen, then it is one should consider these things. So also for the consciousness of the devotees being distributed, they feel peaceful. So there was this idea that to tell people that I'm collecting for myself, which I can tell you 100% for sure, you will never succeed in any other place as Copenhagen saying such a thing. it sounds so selfish and so hedonistic and so honestly brutal. You know, I mean, in Germany, you tell somebody, they go, what are you collecting here? What is this for? And you go, for myself. You know, it's called police instantly. There's a man, you know, collecting for himself. He doesn't even say for what, really. It's in Germany, that just would be considered criminal. Okay, you are collecting for yourself. Great, so where's your tax declaration? Where's your, what is your legal status in the state? What are you doing? When you say, I'm collecting for myself so I can study, there's in Denmark absolutely no need to collect for that. Because there is a established system, how you study will be supported. So you must be right. Because anybody who wants to study in Denmark should get support. And then you say, but I want to study in Krishna consciousness. Then the argument would be, then you should be financed by Krishna consciousness. You should not run around here yourself and collecting for yourself. I mean, I could imagine somebody getting into this. I don't think anybody will. Because people are so covered, I mean, if I would tell you what I heard devotees saying on the street in Germany, but very expertly, very humorously, collecting for hungry birds in Iceland or something like this, or just out of joke. And people laugh. It's really nice to them. They think, this is a funny guy. He's collecting for hungry birds in Iceland. Far. I cannot even imagine what is used to say on the streets. Just like that, and people just laugh. As long as they laugh, it's fine. But then it's like you present yourself for some serious purpose to do something. Whoa, then things get touchy. You get really the wrong man. And especially as preaching in a city like Copenhagen, it's perceived as being a long-term thing. That means year after year, generation after generation, there should be devotees standing in Copenhagen in shopping street as they do now, and always give people something about Krishna in all kinds of forms. Now there are not as many cities being that open like Copenhagen, I tell you, in Europe. Everywhere you go, you will get sooner or later some trouble. The more you intensify the preaching, the worse it gets. Prabhupada said even that's a proof, or Bhaktisiddhanta said, it's the proof of successful preaching that you get opposition. Because if you don't preach, if you don't have anything meaningful, then why should somebody oppose that? So I think the issue was that why not coordinate the whole thing and say something of a more true nature and real nature, which is not difficult, yeah.
I just would like to describe what happened. It was because I was standing with this old lady and her child, and I was explaining and showing them vegetarian status, and then we buy free food for people, we use it to buy boga, and not use the word boga, and that's very nice. And then I gave her the bag and she gave me the money, and then right 2 meters from us was Gabriel, and I use it for my education. It was like...
Well, obviously nobody got the connection. You can do such a thing. When you do it nicely, Krishna will protect you. You can do it probably for a long time. But what if not? What if somebody picks up on this? Hey, why are you collecting? When he's collecting for free food distribution, you are collecting for yourself. Now, of course, if this would come on my table, let's say, and I would be the PR man here or manager, I would know how to handle this. I could explain to people, like example, that yes, he is married, he doesn't have to really collect for some education, so he's collecting for this purpose, and he is also a member of Hare Krishna movement. He wants to study, so he needs some collection. We facilitate it also so he can continue